The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is now in session. It is October 17th, 2025, and once again we are going to look at the situation within Ukraine. So, let's start. First of all, we are going to look at the Zaporizhzhia direction. The Russians, according to reliable sources on the ground, suggest that they have advanced further north into the town of Primorsk, which is adjacent to the strategic town of Stepnogorsk. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Syriac has not colored anything yet, but it's very likely that these reports are true. Now, going to the east, the Gulaipol/Dnipropetrovsk direction, the Russians, according to Deep State UA, which is a mixed bag pro-Ukrainian source, and I think they're actually owned by the Kiev regime, that is that Poltavka, like the majority of it, like 90 or so % of Poltavka has fallen to Russian control. And in addition, geolocations provided by the Group of Forces East, aka Vostok, which is, I think, their name in Russian, that is, have put out a video in which they have advanced 7 square kilometers and captured the village of Pribilia in the Dnipropetrovsk region. With this capture, the Russians are now within striking distance of the village of Vishnivine. I'm sorry if I butchered the pronunciation of this, but yeah, they're within striking distance of Vishnivine. Sorry, again. But yeah, they're within striking distance of this village, and once they take this, they're going to have no issues whatsoever cutting off the road between Pokrovsk and Gulaipol. And then once this happens, then Ukrainian supplies are going to be completely shot, which will then make it easier for the Russians to seize these areas during both fall and winter. And yeah, so not looking good for the armed forces of Ukraine in this direction. And this breakthrough, if anything, is quite alarming, if you ask me, for Ukrainian defenses. Now, in the main Dnipropetrovsk direction, arguably that is, Russians have expanded their zone of control east of the village of Filia and north of Dachny. And reportedly, the Russians now have control over these areas here, which in turn will give them the ability to strike the big village of Novopavlovka, which would be the Russians' first major settlement in Dnipropetrovsk direction to fall to them. And once that falls, then Mazova is also within distance. Now, for the big event of the video. Now, Syriac has not colored any of this in yet, but it's all but confirmed at this point with geolocations and such, and especially with a reliable source like Lost Armor saying so. The Russians have reportedly broken through into the central part of the city of Pokrovsk. And Anatoly Radov also reported that the Russians have cleared out the rest of these commie blocks here and have entered also the central part of the city. And according to Lost Armor, the Russians crossed the railways and have apparently seized full control over the industrial zone within the city of Pokrovsk, or Krasnaya Amisk. And as a result of the recent breakthrough, the Russians have taken over all these blocks here, up to the central part of Pokrovsk. And because of the recent Russian breakthrough and the lack of supplies, some Ukrainian soldiers were captured on video with the use of a FPV drone surrendering, like waving white flags, putting their hands in the air, and surrendering. Yeah, things are not looking good. So yeah, it appears, if you ask me, that by the end of 2025, I think it is very likely that at least this part of the city of Pokrovsk, like the main central part of it, which is around 60 to 70% of it, is definitely going to come under Russian control alongside the villages of Ri and Henitivka. So once all these fall, I honestly don't think there's going to be that much of a fight for the city of Myanograd. I think the Ukrainians are just going to realize the inevitable is coming and that there's no point for fighting for it because literally they're pretty much encircled at this point. Like, if the reports coming from the industrial zone here are true, in which the, like, this area here, like the industrial area here is taken by the Russians, then they're basically encircled. Like, there's no way out for them except for this unreliable dirt road here. Like, seriously. They're trapped. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were to evacuate in mass, sort of like how things happened in Avdiivka. And then after that, we will then see a Russian push towards Dobropila, like a proper push, not like one of those fake DRG offensives, that is. And then, of course, westwards towards the Dnipropetrovsk region. But yeah, so keep an eye on here, because I have a feeling that we're going to see some very alarming stuff coming out of this area within a matter of days, if not a whole week from now. Like right before Halloween. So anyway, with that being said, let's move on to other directions. Now, Ukrainians have talked about Nove Shakove, Valne, and Ivanovka being cleared out, but I don't believe it. In fact, I honestly don't think any of this stuff in this area here is real. It's just a massive gray zone. I'll say it again for the 1 millionth time. Like, not just here, but on Twitter X, Telegram, it's all gray zone to me. Now, Konstantinovka direction. We do actually have some news here, and it's once again not good news for the Ukrainians. The Russians have continued their advance into the city of Konstantinovka and its outskirts, and reportedly the Russians have cleared this pocket here, though Syriac doesn't think so just yet. But we can assume at this point that the village of Pridichine is probably back under Russian control. The Ukrainians counterattacked in this area and retook it, but I don't think they're going to hold this area for long, if not, like, completely out of there already. And if you ask me, it seems now that the Russians are beginning, like, an actual assault onto the city of Konstantinovka, though I do think when compared to the other fronts, it's not as important. And because of that, I think it's going to be a slow slogfest until the Ukrainians themselves just decide to leave. But yeah, it's going to be a slow slogfest. Now, in the Siversk direction, reportedly, the Russians have cleared out this pocket here, and there's reliable geolocations and satellite imagery of artillery fire being fired into this area here, which suggests that the Ukrainians probably don't have control over this area anymore. So it leads me to believe that the Russians probably do control it, or it's at least in a gray zone. So once all this falls, then Zvanivka is probably going to fall too, which will then give the Russians a clear gateway to Siversk from the south. And then they'll be able to FPV drone the only road into Siversk itself, which is this. And then after that, the town will probably fall quickly. Now, looking at the Liman direction, another bad-looking front for the armed forces of Ukraine. Novoselivka is in an operational encirclement. Literally everything except, I guess, these unreliable dirt roads here is all but physically controlled by the Russians. And it appears right now that the Russians clearly have the advantage here, and it wouldn't surprise me if Novoselivka falls quickly. And also there's reports that Dobre Shive is now contested as well. Obviously, the Russians have begun their push towards Liman, in an effort to recapture the city, which they lost 3 years ago. But also, the Russians are looking to recapture the areas they lost to within the Kharkiv region. They are reportedly advancing westward towards the village of Alexandrivka, which is on the border with Kharkiv region. And if they're able to capture this, then they'll be able to enter the Kharkiv region here, which will bring them within distance of the strategic city of Izium. But that will probably not be until 2026. But anyway, moving into the Barova direction, not much going on except that it's now been 100% confirmed that Pokrovsk Andreevka has been captured by the Russians, or recaptured, that is, because they did have it during 2022. And also, geolocations have suggested that the Russians have recaptured the village of Pischine, not to be confused with the Pischine down here, further south. And with this capture, I honestly think we can assume that the push to clear out this eastern pocket here is ongoing. Though, to be honest, it's just in its infancy. So it's too early to say what will happen next. But we can definitely, though, say that the operation has started. But it's going to take them a while before they can clear that pocket. Maybe like a month or two. Maybe before the start of 2026. Maybe early 2026. But it's definitely going to happen sooner than many people think. And in the city of Kupiansk, not much coming out of here, though we can assume that the Russians are mopping up the western part of the city, which will in turn give them the advantage in the eastern part of the city, that is. And then, lastly, in the Volchansk direction, other than the Russians clearing out the western parts of the town, the Russians have also reportedly, according to reliable sources, recaptured the village of Taiki, though Syriac, again, has not colored these areas just yet. And that's going to do it for today's video, everybody. I hoped all of you found it entertaining, informative, but also, I don't know, just interesting. So I hope all of you have a great day. I'll see you all in a few days from now, and take care. I'll see you guys next time, and goodbye.